maybe 1 million people on Earth understand that everyone on Earth is going to need this at some point in time. And rather than being a nice to have, it's going to be a must have. A fisherman sees a fisherman from afar. We've all had similar experiences in this Bitcoin journey, and this is really almost like a rite of passage. I think it's eating the meat of exchange market, which is a $100 trillion market cap. I look at the fact that it's absolutely decimating the store of value market because we've got gold bleeding out into Bitcoin. We haven't even started tapping those major markets yet, and Bitcoin really needs to grow up in market cap, get 10x the size before it can really feel comfortable starting to drain those pools of capital. And once Bitcoin gets to that size market cap, we're going to have less and less Bitcoins available for trade. These moments in time will come for everyone. It's ironic. The only thing you have to do is successfully hold your Bitcoin. From that initial advice, our clients are up nearly 190 times. And I look at that and think, how can you be upset with them? Thank you for giving us a wonderful platform to create this prosperity and wealth and bring the world, to a better place through Bitcoin.
Hi, Peter. How are you doing? Everything fine on your end?
Life is beautiful. It's good to be with you.
Life is beautiful in Bitcoin land. That's amazing. Maybe before we get started, you have been on 2 times on the show. You have been on almost all the other podcasts. So probably most of the people listening here know you. But for the few people that haven't seen your stuff, give us some background of who you are and especially why you're excited about Bitcoin.
Robin, thank you for that. I guess my background has been in investment advice and in and around finance for the last 25 years. We've helped people across all facets of finance, from investment advice right through to credit, debt obligations, and then finding investments that are going to help, I guess, outperform anything else that's out there. We also have spent a lot of time specializing in helping clients set up the proper trust structures or entities that they need in order to, successfully navigate the whole host of obligations that are bestowed upon us, and do that in the most tax effective and asset friendly or asset protective friendly manner. And I guess 10 years ago, we started giving advice on Bitcoin. Actually, just under 10 years ago now, we started giving advice to our clients on Bitcoin. And it started off as a relatively innocuous suggestion to put 1% to 2% of their net assets into Bitcoin as having some exposure as a hedge for a catastrophic failure of the system. And that from that initial advice, our clients are up nearly 190 times on the initial investment that they put in less than 10 years. So it's been a fabulous ride for our clients. And I'm very happy to say that we've been giving advice in this space for the last, nearly 10 years now.
And it's amazing. And 10 years is a long time in Bitcoin. Bitcoin hasn't been around that long, so 10 years is a very long time to be into Bitcoin. And also, I feel like, I don't know if there's someone else, but I feel like you maybe the most bullish man in Bitcoin. Maybe there's someone else. I don't know if you think that's fair to say.
Look, it may be fair to say, but I think everyone has their own interpretation of bullish. But I just look at what this represents for all of us, and I think it's an opportunity that comes along once in a species. To coin a friend of ours, Jesse, and his article, I just look at this and think, if people understood what the alternatives were from an investment case perspective relative to Bitcoin, if you go across the gamut of all of the investment vehicles or options that we give advice on, venture capital, private equity, stocks, bonds, property, commodities. And I look at this and think, here we have a relatively new asset that is completely misunderstood. No one really understands what this is, and I feel like I'm really late to this party, and I've been here nearly 10 years, and I'm still grappling on a day-to-day basis with what the ramifications of this technology is going to be. And I look at this and think, probably the simplest way for me to break this down is that the reason why I'm so bullish is that there may be 1 million people on Earth who understand that Bitcoin is a need, but say 8 billion people think it's a want. But really it's a desire. They think it's a desire, and nice to have, but maybe 1 million people on Earth understand that everyone on Earth is going to need this at some point in time. And rather than being a nice to have, it's going to be a must have. And to the conversation that we had prior to sort of jumping on here, I think that our friends in, say, the subcontinent, India, Africa, understand this problem much better than us in Europe, the US, and Australia can comprehend.
It's crazy to think about that, because I don't even think it's a million. I like the people that really understand, because there are a lot of people that hold Bitcoin that just like have it. Oh yeah, I have like $1,000 in Bitcoin to diversify, and those are all getting like counted in those statistics. And it's hard to say like how many people actually understand it. If it's like 300,000, 700,000, or like 2 million or 1 million, like it's hard to say, but like a million is, I think, a good guess. But I think it's pretty obvious that's a lot less than 8 billion. And then it's like, yeah, like how much is it from like, we are at over 100K with a million people understanding it. Where are we when people actually like, oh shit, that's not optional. This Bitcoin thing, we need it. And that's why I'm also with orange pilling. I'm like, I try no longer to sell it to people outside of the people that I really love, because they will benefit the most. If someone that is just here and like, oh, like he shits on Bitcoin, yeah, like, okay, you do you. I know you will get to Bitcoin eventually anyways, because you have, as I have, no choice. And it's kind of weird to think about. There's so few that really understand it, and everyone has to get it, even though if they not understand it, because like peer pressure, the game theory, the group thing, like it's just pushing people in there. It's crazy to think for me.
That's the gorgeous thing about this. And to your point there, people think we have a choice in this. And the sad part is that no one has a choice. It's just a matter of when you get on the train. Do you get on the train now? You're going to be rewarded handsomely for doing it sooner rather than later. But some people will not be pushed onto that train. They will go absolutely reluctantly onto that train. And this is the opportunity. This is, the juxtaposition of, the cost and opportunity cost of delaying that. And this is where what's really funny about this is, for anyone who's had a modicum of interest in Bitcoin and spent time studying it, I think a fisherman sees a fisherman from afar. We've all had similar experiences in this Bitcoin journey. And this is really almost like a rite of passage for coming into adulthood or becoming a Bitcoiner. Is, there's a whole host of trials and tribulations to go through in order to, I guess, go down that Bitcoin rabbit hole and feel very comfortable with it. But what awaits you on that journey is one of self-discovery and really understanding and learning about yourself. A great teacher on, how you deal with pressure, how you deal with volatility, and most importantly, it gives you a very acute sense of critical thinking because of the volatility attached to Bitcoin. It gives you a lot of time to reflect on, have I made the right decision with this investment? Have I made, is all of my investment thesis still working relative to everything else that's going on in the world? Do I still have, does my thesis stand up to, the changes that we've seen?
For me, there's never been anything comparable that we have now with Bitcoin. I don't know, you have more life experience than me, and you're probably better in history than me. But is there anything that you're like, this can be slightly compared to what's currently going on with Bitcoin, in terms of the biggest wealth transfer that we ever had?
I think this wealth transfer you talk of is twofold. Yes, I don't think there's ever been a bigger one in raw numbers, but I don't think there's going to be a quicker one either, which is the really compelling reason for Bitcoin. And this is the thing where I sort of, a lot of people want to really bash the boomers for the state of the world. And the fact is, I think the boomers have done a really good job. They've avoided World War III. They've avoided a nuclear holocaust. There's a whole host of things. They've freed the world from communism. They've liberated, East Germany. Russia is now, I guess, a democracy, if you call it that. we've liberated 1 billion people out of poverty through India, via India and China with capitalism. There's a wonderful thing. Like the legacy of the boomers has been absolutely fantastic. However, everyone wants to rag on the boomers for doing what any self-interested person would do. And that is accumulate as much wealth as they could. And I look at this and think it's very easy to be upset with the boomers and despondent and jealous of all of their achievements. But the fact is, we as a generation have got far more opportunity than they ever had. And if you focus on Bitcoin, I think all of the gains, material gains and property price increases that they saw over 4 decades are going to come to Bitcoiners in the next 10 years. And I look at that and think, how can you be upset with them? Thank you for giving us a wonderful platform to create this prosperity and wealth and bring the world, to a better place through Bitcoin. And all of that's going to happen over the next 10 years.
Yeah, it's those memes where someone says like, "Oh, the boomers that bought real estate for like free blueberries or anything like that." I think the same way. I mean, there have been websites where you give them the email and they give you hundreds of Bitcoin in the past when you look really back in the time. And even now, I look at I have a wallet of Satoshi, and I have this like Robinhood wallet of Satoshi, and I get everyday sats from like ads. They're sending me 10 sats, 50 sats, 100 sats per day of like, hey, check this out, check this out. I'm like, just like switch the thing that I don't see it. And I'm like, those hundreds of sats will be worth a lot of purchasing power in 15 years, in 20 years, in 10 years. And I'm like, this is crazy. I just made a wallet of Satoshi address, and I just get basically massively wealthy when you compare it to like in 10 years from that. And people don't even realize they give free sats away for what? To send out a link. And this is kind of the thing where maybe Blueberry, with the Blueberry meme of like, they bought real estate for free blueberries, but we are getting sent free sats.
Yeah. And what's funny about that is, I look at that and think you deserve all those, what I call free sats, or what you call free sats, because, here you are working tirelessly to spread the message of Bitcoin and bring hopefully a message to someone that, would never understand Bitcoin. And, you don't know the impact that you have on, thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people out there who listen in to learn more about Bitcoin from you. And sort of this, butterfly effect of, the work you do having a significant impact on others can never be underestimated. And this is where I love seeing you get rewarded for that, because the tireless work that you put in helps change people's lives. And this is where that understanding that you help bring to market and all of your listeners is really, really valuable, because if everyone understood Bitcoin as well as you did, the world would be a much better place.
Yeah. And I guess there's a difference between people sending me sats and people just spamming wallet of Satoshi addresses with like weird links. but I get what you're saying. Yeah. I just saw that because I always look at like 1-2 interviews of a guest that I have. And I saw something crazy. What was it? The Simply Bitcoin guys, the interview that you did with Nico. I love Nico. He was already 2 times on the show. Great guy.
Yeah.
I love, like, I was like, oh gosh, like you're too bullish for me. And I rarely have this. And you had, for 15 years, 1,000x for Bitcoin, which I don't even know what this means in terms of price, but it's a lot. How do you come to that conclusion?
I think what that would be in today's terms would be roughly $120 million in 15 years. And I think that's a relatively conservative assumption. You look at a whole host of parameters that you can draw from. I look at Bitcoin as a medium exchange. I think it's eating the medium exchange market, which is a $100 trillion market cap. I look at the fact that it's absolutely decimating the store of value market, because we've got gold bleeding out into Bitcoin, but also the sort of the untold story of real estate and stocks being a store of value function now. They're going to be bleeding out and demonetizing relative to Bitcoin. So there's circa $400 to $500 trillion worth of value there, 20 trillion in the gold market, and then the mother of all beasts, which is the unit of account, which I think ultimately leads to what we would classically call hyper-Bitcoinization, the ascension of Bitcoin to the unit of account. If those three things happen, even partially, then we'll have 1,000x return from here in the next 15 years. And the facts of the matter is that we have huge amounts of capital sitting on the side that haven't even allocated to Bitcoin yet. And what's funny is, from a large capital allocator perspective, they're not wanting to even put $1 into Bitcoin unless they're assured that they can get out. And the pools of capital that are yet to come to Bitcoin are so vast that, you know, this market cap needs to be 10 times the size before they start allocating, because otherwise they're going to push the price around. And large capital allocators are far more concerned with getting out of a trade than getting into a trade. Because if you get into a trade that you can't get out of, you can be absolutely wiped out. So this market cap needs to build enormously. And this is where, ironically, Bitcoin being a Veblen good, as the market gets bigger, it will actually attract more capital. It will push up prices. And what we're seeing is a whole host of significant hodlers of last resort coming to market that will never sell their Bitcoin. I dare say there's a portion of your stack, Robin, that you'll never sell. There's a portion of my stack I'll never sell. We're now having, capital or Bitcoin accumulators, like in the form of the Bitcoin Treasury companies, popping up all over the world. That their business model is premised on the fact that they can never sell Bitcoin, and the second they do, it unwinds their complete business strategy. So this is another black hole for Bitcoin that's coming to market, that's dragging different pools of capital that would never access Bitcoin or invest in it into Bitcoin. I look at this and I think we haven't even started tapping those major markets yet, and Bitcoin really needs to grow up in market cap, get 10x the size before it can really feel comfortable starting to drain those pools of capital. And what's funny is, once Bitcoin gets to that size market cap, we're going to have less and less Bitcoins available for trade. And so at the very point in time when more and more capital's entering the market to buy Bitcoin, there's going to be less and less available. So this is where we get this exponential type return, where I don't think it is outrageous to think in 15 years we're going to see 1,000x return.
It's crazy to think about, and it's actually something I recently learned within the last year, where the bigger the Bitcoin market cap gets, the more capital it actually attracts to Bitcoin, which is weird to say. If if a thing gets more expensive, more people want to buy it, kind of a thing. But with the financial assets, it makes a lot of sense. By the way, what's your take on Bitcoin treasury companies and how they it seems like every week is now a new treasury company popping up. It's almost like the ICO thing in 2017.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings on the Bitcoin Treasury Company. I think as a whole, for Bitcoin, it's a net benefit. They're bringing attention to Bitcoin. They're, I guess, influencing, manipulating capital markets for the benefit of Bitcoin. I think there are some actors in the space who are thinking that this is an opportunistic time for them to launch a Bitcoin Treasury company who maybe they don't have the Bitcoin chops that you and I would expect for a Bitcoin maxi to be running a Bitcoin Treasury company. But having said that, I think there are going to be good and bad actors in any marketplace, and it's going to be a net benefit for Bitcoin. The thing I'm really comfortable about is, I think Bitcoin's greatest proponent is Michael Seyr, and he has the largest Bitcoin Treasury company, and he buys more Bitcoin than all of the treasury companies combined on an annual basis. And I don't doubt Michael Seyr for 1 minute. I think his intentions are pure. I think he's arguably the best of us. He's got a great message. He delivers it in a fine way, and his message has been consistent. And it's very easy to get behind that and look at the performance of MicroStrategy. That's uplifted Bitcoin, and I think it's a net benefit. 1 and 1 makes 3 with these Bitcoin treasury companies as a whole. Not to say that there won't be any carnage along the way. I think there's going to be winners and losers. And if you're playing in that space, understand the risks, that it's far more volatile and risky than Bitcoin itself.
It's super interesting. And I had Seyr on, and I was at his 100K party, and I think that Michael Seyr is tremendously good for Bitcoin. To have such a guy in Bitcoin is just amazing. And obviously it benefits him personally, of course, also a lot, but the tremendous value that he brings with strategy and with his intellectual and with his army of people also to Bitcoin and advertising Bitcoin to a whole new group, because he was kind of the first one that really made the Bitcoin treasury companies and those things possible. But there are people that say, oh, like he's a bad actor and all those things. And I always say, does it matter if Michael Saylor is a bad or a good actor? Like is even if he's a bad actor and he has some devious plan that we don't know about, which I don't think so, but Bitcoin is bigger than him. So it's like would it even matter if Michael Saylor has some bad plans? I don't know.
Boy, that's something I haven't really looked into or thought about, and I just really judge the man on what he's delivered at face value. And I think he's been incredibly beneficial for Bitcoin. I think he's been, we've had some great Bitcoin evangelists over the years. I look at Max Kaiser being one of the greats, dear friend of mine, Jeff Booth, one of the greatest. I think he's wonderful. Preston, all wonderful advocates for Bitcoin. But I think it would be fair to say that the greatest reach, the greatest penetration that anyone's ever had is through Michael Saylor. And I think he's been consistent with a Bitcoin maxi mentality. So I think it's hard to criticize a person for your own imagined thoughts on what he's planning to do when he's been very consistent and transparent with what he's planning on doing, and he's delivered on it. So I think it might be grossly unfair to judge someone by your own thoughts on what you think they're going to do. I guess the whole legal system that we work on is innocent until proven guilty, yet some people want to impugn guilt before he's even done anything. So why don't we get to that bridge when we get to it?
The first time I ever made any money, I got myself from that money a watch. And ever since then, I collect timepieces to remember times where I achieved some milestone. That's why I got the Bitcoin 2025 edition when I went to my first ever American Bitcoin conference. So for me, the Bitcoin watches from Coin Vigilante represents the time that we are living in. For every person that wears a Bitcoin watch, I know they are representing sound money to the outside world. Make sure to check out those amazing Coin Vigilante timepieces down in the descriptions. I love those watches so much. I know how big of a hurdle it can be to have self-custody, but it's so freaking important to make that first step. We have to make sure it's as easy and simple as possible. And that's exactly what BitBox did. BitBox created the simplest and the easiest hardware wallet to use to get into self-custody. So get yourself a BitBox down from the link in the description. And when you use code Robin, you even get a 5% discount. The most important thing for your Bitcoin journey is not buying Bitcoin, but it's how to keep them. And yes, you have maybe the right tools, but how do you actually go ahead and stick it all together so it's the most secure for you personally? Self-custody is a deeply personalized journey, and the Bitcoin way is helping you exactly finding that correct setup for you personally. They are also helping you with securing your own cybersecurity. And if you want to go one step above all that, you can even get a consultation for a Plan B residency. Go to thebitcoinway.com/Robin and you will get a 30-minute free consultation. I want to tell you about something very special to me. It's called Microseed. If you hold your Bitcoin in self-custody, and you should, you know how critical it is to secure your seed phrase. You should not have them on paper. You should not have them on anything else than titanium. With Microseed, you can engrave your 12 or 24 word seed phrase, the entire seed phrase, onto a 1-inch small washer. Yes, just one washer. All 24 words on that one washer. You can hide that thing everywhere. And even better, you don't need to buy a new kit every time you have to get a the new wallet, you can make unlimited backups because Microseed is not selling the washer. Microseed is selling the device that stamps the washer. So you get the full kit with the device, with the washers, with the hammer, with everything you need to get started today. And you can make with that unlimited amount of backups. Go now to microseed.io. Again, that's microseed.io to get your last backup tool you ever need. Absolutely. Yeah. It's mostly, I think, fueled by envy by people for him, but he's been great. And this kind of also, for me, when we look at 2024, maybe 2025, it's probably 2024, which kind of noted the change what Bitcoin really is. Not what Bitcoin really is, but like how Bitcoin ecosystem kind of evolved. Before that, we had Seyr, we had some other companies, Tesla already bought, Square and all those other companies. But with 2024, with the Bitcoin ETF, and now with that really high focus of Bitcoin Treasury companies, institutions are slowly coming in. And yeah, like I get like we are very at the very start of it. So it's like we haven't even seen any kind of real big capital flowing into Bitcoin. Have been some volume, but like in terms of the bigger volume that will come, not. But how do you see this changing landscape when we think about what Bitcoin was 2017, 2020, and what it is now in 2025, and how this gets forward and how it's kind of getting more and more financialized in the fiat system?
Oh, it's a great question. Probably a better reframing of that is the financial system's getting more Bitcoinized.
Yes.
And it's not the big eat the slow, the fast eat the small, eat the slow. And this is where I look at this and think, in a lot of the work we do for clients in putting investment portfolios together, what's really interesting is it's like that moment Galileo discovered that the world revolves around the sun, not the sun revolving around the world. And traditional finance is having that heliocentric moment as we speak. They think the whole financial world revolves around the Federal Reserve and the central banks. But you and I know that the entire world is revolving around Bitcoin. They just don't know it yet. And our world revolves around it. And what's funny is each day goes past, more and more people join our team than join the Federal Reserve and central bank team. And they opt out of that co-opted and dishonest system of having a few key decision makers determine what the interest rates are, what the inflation rate is determined to be. Objectively, of course, it's nothing but, it's just subjective. You know, the unemployment numbers are fiddled with, the GDP numbers are basically whatever you want them to be. And that's the system that everyone's currently applauding, or the majority of the world is applauding at the moment. And here we have an honest system that is working day in, day out, every 10 minutes, producing a new block that everyone can see exactly what's going on at any one point in time. It's, I've heard it called the truth machine, the time chain, whatever you want to call it. But there is only one system that's incorruptible on Earth, and that is Bitcoin. And as more and more people around the world figure that out, I think more and more people are going to migrate their time and money to Bitcoin.
It's super interesting. How do you look actually at, and I think you have also something going with borrowing against the Bitcoin thing, because there is more and more the demand where people are wanting to borrow against the Bitcoin. And I have not seen that in Bitcoin before with such a great pressure of people. Oh yeah, I want to lend money. I want to borrow against my Bitcoin. I want to use the traditional financial system, or like instruments that we know from the traditional financial system, and kind of use that with my Bitcoin. How do you look at that?
I think this is the Bitcoinization of traditional finance, and it's an extension of that. It's obvious. We're going to see products and services that are built out around Bitcoin that we can't even imagine at this point in time. But what we're doing is we're drawing a bridge to a new system using the financial services and products that we're familiar with, because it's the only reference point that we have at this point in time. So I think as Bitcoin grows up and gets more sophisticated, the products and services around that are going to continue to evolve. And the thing I love about and spend a lot of time thinking about is is the Bitcoin lending. And I look at this and think we're going to see a whole host of range of services and products built out around this space, because ultimately, when you understand Bitcoin, you never want to sell your Bitcoin. You want to hold on to that for as long as possible, and you want to figure out ways, unique ways of adding to your pile of Bitcoin. And there's basically a hero's journey in Bitcoin that everyone goes through it. You start off with a little bit, you add a lot to it, then you start looking around and comparing Bitcoin to all of your other investments. And then once you've gone through that whole process, you then start looking at your home and thinking, well, is this really worth it? Should I sell this to buy more Bitcoin? Because what's the point of paying land tax and maintenance and all the rest of it, the mortgage on the property? And then you go through and realize, hang on a sec, I want to get more Bitcoin, but I'm kind of tapped out. And this is the game we play at the same time, trying to live life and have experiences that we can enjoy and celebrate for the rest of our time. So I look at this and think these services that are being built out and the lending products are a way for hodlers to remain hodlers for a longer period of time. And I'm all for all forms of lending in this space. I think it's very important to understand the risk, but at the same time, this is going to be a forcing function to see the price of Bitcoin go up dramatically, because if everyone's borrowing on their Bitcoin and no one's selling it, then what's actually happening? It's just creating a supply squeeze that is going to push the price higher through time.
Is that what you're seeing? People are reluctant to sell because they just don't have an option. Like I honestly, I wouldn't even know if Bitcoin is tomorrow at like 50 million. I'm like, yeah, maybe I'll buy some things that I always wanted to buy, but this is not a lot. Like I don't have a lot of wishes also. Like I'm like, yeah, what do I need it for really? And then I'm like, okay, but do I want to diversify? Like diversify in what? I don't even know what I would diversify in, or like, should I buy real estate? Yeah. I don't know. Why should I buy real estate? I can rent. I think like why should I buy any other assets? Like the other assets just bring me more work. Like Bitcoin doesn't bring me any work.
Well, it's really interesting you say that. I think that's a logical conclusion to the end of what lies ahead of us, that I think everyone gets to that point. And what you've just described there is effectively the demonetization of the property in the stock market. And as more and more people get more and more wealth into Bitcoin, that is the logical end conclusion of their thoughts. Why would I want to hold stocks? Why would I want to hold property when both of those are going to drastically underperform Bitcoin over the next 10 to 15 years? If I'm even call it a tenth right on what's happening in the next 15 years, that's a 100x increase in the next 15 years in the price of Bitcoin. Do you think your stock portfolio or your property portfolio is going to go up 100x in the next 10 years? I can't see that happening. Not with the current debt levels across the globe. We're literally indebted up to our eyeballs. Credit growth is slowing. GDP is slowing. Yes, there's going to be a boom in AI, but how is that going to filter down to the mums and dads who are actually going to be buying those properties and buying those stocks? I think it's going to be a very unequal distribution of wealth. And it's funny, I look at Bitcoin on top of everything else that it is. I actually think it's the ultimate hedge against getting AI wrong, because ultimately at the end of the day, they're going to have to require a form of money that's incorruptible by people. And the only incorruptible money out there is Bitcoin for them to use. So ultimately the ultimate AI play, I think, is actually just buying Bitcoin and sitting on your hands.
Does this change? Like I'll preset that if I buy a house, I have to care for that. Like, and even if I hire someone to do it, like I have to care for the guy that I hired. If I buy a boat, I have to care for it. And even though if I hire a guy that cares for the boat, I have to manage the guy that does the boat. The same with a car, the same with anything that you might want to buy. And then we have, stocks, and we have maybe other financial assets, and none of them are performing as good as Bitcoin. None of them bring me any value. They just bring me more work and less performance. I'm like, then I just have Bitcoin. Does Bitcoin kind of change our lives from more towards renting things, and we own Bitcoin, but like we rent a lot of other things, or because I also do see a lot of Bitcoiners really wanting to buy their own home and stuff like that and own those things again.
I think sort of laying or drawing on some experience in giving advice around or investment advice around personal matters when it comes to buying a home and things like that. I think each individual is unique and will come up with their own framework for assessing this. But ultimately, I'll distinguish between a personal and investment decision. For personal decisions, there is nothing that will talk someone out of a rational investment decision. So I look at that and think, one of the things that Bitcoin gives us is time and the focus on how important family is, and generating those memories and experiences with our family and friends is of the utmost importance. Now, can you do that successfully renting? Yes, you can, but you've got a much higher probability of assuring that all of those experiences are great if you own the property or you own the lake house or you have X, Y, or Z that you're going to create those memories on an ongoing basis with and have some conformity and continuity with it. So I look at that and think there comes a point in time in every Bitcoiner's life where I think they've got enough Bitcoin and they want to start creating those memories and have those opportunities with family and friends that they're going to create lasting memories. And quite frankly, you can't go to your grave with your Bitcoin. You can't take it with you. So you may as well spend it or give it to someone who's going to spend it in a way that is, in line with your values.
And Bitcoin might come. It's actually interesting. Do you think, when do you think there's the point of Bitcoin maturity of where Bitcoin already sucked most of financial energy in there? And of course, there will be still growth there as humans get more effective. But is this maturity time than this time where maybe Bitcoiners are like, yeah, okay, Bitcoin isn't growing as fast. Maybe it makes sense to buy some stocks again, invest in other things, and maybe, I can buy my dream house and for just 5% or 2% of my portfolio now because Bitcoin has gone up to over 100 million, as Peter said.
I think it's all a personal preference thing, and these moments in time will come for everyone. And it's ironic. The only thing you have to do is successfully hold your Bitcoin. It sounds so simple and so easy to do, but it's the hardest thing in the world to actually complete. And this is coming from someone who's been in Bitcoin for circa 9 years, nearly 10. It sounds so simple. It's such a simple promise. Just hold your Bitcoin for 10 years. Don't do anything with it. And you'll wake up on the other side of it fabulously wealthy. And not many people can do that. It's very, very difficult.
So the Bitcoin advisory is also now soon getting 10 years old. Are you celebrating?
Well, it was in a different incarnation early on, and it's, I guess, in the branded of the Bitcoin advisor, has been around just over 2 years now, or nearly 2.5 years. But we've been giving advice on Bitcoin for 10. Are we getting ready to celebrate? I think every day is a celebration. Each day, and I've got to say, this is the really fun part for me, is we get to help just a wide range of clients into Bitcoin who would otherwise never invest in Bitcoin or self-custody their Bitcoin. And to me, that's the really fun part where, on a daily basis, we have conversations with baby boomers who are downsizing, huge homes, walking away with tons of cash, and they're looking at the stock markets, they're looking at investing in property, and they're coming to their own conclusion that might not be the best place for their investment money. And they're actively seeking us out to say, hey, we want to do Bitcoin, we want to do it the right way. Can you help us do it where we're not going to hurt ourselves? And to me, I can't tell you what a buzz that is, seeing, 65, 70, 75-year-old people go down this road, knowing what's awaiting them, because we've all had similar shared experiences in this Bitcoin rabbit hole. I've got to say, this is the excitement that really I get a lot of juice out of from a work perspective, to see and know what's ahead of them and what they're going to find out.
That's so crazy. And going through the cycle of seeing someone being into Bitcoin for like a cycle or 2 cycles, like 4 to 8 years, and seeing how life changing that can be for someone. That's magical. I don't have to live a lot of people because I myself just in for a little bit longer than a cycle since 2020. So, but I've seen some friends that have been in Bitcoin almost right at the start when I came in, because I said like, hey, like, this year could be nice, and they're like, oh yeah, okay, and seeing their development, makes me really bullish for people adopting Bitcoin on so many different levels. A question that comes more and more up in the community now is, will 2026 be a down year? And I always said, like probably Bitcoin cycles won't change so quickly, but the more and more I see, I'm like, I don't see any bad news coming on our horizon. At the same time, I see more and more people buying Bitcoin. I don't know. I have a hard time believing that 2026 will be a down year. How do you see the cycles and the cycle theory?
I agree with you. I think we're going to have a prolonged cycle. And I think the diminishing block reward is a huge indicator because it's relatively insignificant now. It doesn't have the sell pressure that previously existed. We've got so much demand from the Treasury companies, from the ETFs and day-to-day hodlers, dollar cost averaging into Bitcoin. I look at this and think it is a fundamentally different market. I think we're going to have muted peaks and muted troughs, and it's going to be a much further extended cycle. And I think I could be wrong on this, but I just don't think we're going to have the significant impact that the halvings used to have. It's going to be a morphed system process cycle moving forward that we're going to look at, and it's going to be difficult to understand because there's just so much capital sitting on the sidelines that can really influence this market. And a significant change that we've seen from previous cycles, we now have the endorsement from the world's most powerful government. Now, I know no Bitcoiner on earth really gives a shit about the government, but guess what? Every non-Bitcoiner, and there's more non-Bitcoiners than Bitcoiners, they do care about what the government thinks. And now you've got the world's most powerful government endorsing Bitcoin, wanting to have a strategic reserve, create a regulatory framework around it. All of a sudden, Bitcoin has now been demystified for 99% who aren't here yet. So I look at that and think that's going to have a significant impact, and that's going to be a much more prolonged investment cycle that we may not be familiar with and we haven't seen yet.
I agree. People in the Bitcoin community underestimate how much it means for the non-Bitcoiners that the government is behind Bitcoin, because a lot of questions I still get, maybe because I live in Europe, like, oh, what if the government bans Bitcoin? I'm like, and if this is completely out of the way, where this is no longer even an option because it's not an option, then people are like, oh yeah, oh, the government is behind it. Oh shit, like I really have to buy it. And then they get educated and then they realize, oh, it cannot even be banned and all those things. So I learned a lot from my Bitcoin journey. And I definitely wasn't a Bitcoiner when I got into Bitcoin. And the journey was a slow transition in there, mindset wise, but also value wise, and just like adopting the Bitcoin mindset to a certain extent. It takes time. It takes time for people.
Ironically, I think everyone gets to the same point though, which is probably the best tool we've had for conforming thought processes humanity's ever seen.
Interesting, yeah. You said muted peaks and muted drops. Do you mean that they will be smaller?
Yes. So instead of having a 2,000% blow off top where it just goes vertical, we have call it a 300% blow off top that looks like that. And then instead of dropping 80% or 78% like it typically does, we might see a 30, 40, 50% drop, and that's all we're going to get. And, those guys who are trading, thinking they're going to get an opportunity to buy Bitcoin at an 80% discount from its peak, they're going to be sadly let down that they're not going to get that opportunity. So I think as capital market participation gets bigger, the market capitalization of Bitcoin grows, we're going to see those it just seems like a logical function of market maturity.
Yeah, this is the saddest thing when I see people saying like, oh, I want to buy into Bitcoin, but I'm waiting for a little bit of a lower price. And I'm like, you might never get there. Like it's maybe now, then never.
Well, that's the problem. I had a conversation with a client today who was asking, we've got, a few $100,000. What do you recommend? And I said, is this your first Bitcoin purchase? And they said, yeah. I said, well, you put all of that in today. Buy today. Oh, why would you do that? Why not dollar cost average? I said, because you've got no exposure to Bitcoin. That's the problem. If you miss out on this opportunity and it does, Samson Mauser mega candle, while you're sitting on the sideline dollar cost averaging because you're getting too smart by half, you've missed the opportunity, because once you go down this rabbit hole, you realize that first, no matter how much capital you want to allocate in your first round through, it's never the total amount of capital that you're going to allocate to it. Everyone thinks, oh, I'm going to put a little bit in and then I'll be done. But the more they learn, the more they buy. And so I'm probably fairly aggressive on that front to say, no, put as much as you can afford to lose in straight up front. And then once you start learning about it, once you understand it, once you realize what the potential for this is, you're going to look around at all the other assets that you're holding that are underperforming Bitcoin. You're going to start figuring out what ones you don't want to hold anymore and what you want to transfer into Bitcoin. So to me, this is, I think, a missed opportunity that a lot of people new to Bitcoin really miss out on. That there's always more capital. No one ever puts in, all of their capital into Bitcoin in the first investment. So
it's super interesting. And Sam's now, I'll still have an interview outstanding with him. He will be on quite soon. But do you think this Omega candle, because you also said about like muted peaks, and it's for me harder and harder to see a thing where I just go to sleep and next day it's like up, I don't know, 100, 200%, like anything crazy like that, because it's just like so much bigger than it was when it actually did that. And it's like, yeah, you need at that point a really big move. Like when we go back to 2020, Square buying $50 million of Bitcoin was a big move. Like this was a big news. Now, if any company buys $50 million of Bitcoin, people are like, yeah, like this happens every day now. Like it's normal. It's like, it's not a Tuesday. So I'm kind of wondering, what would it take for something to actually move the market at this point? It's like, we already have the USA in Bitcoin. We already have, I mean, they're not actively buying. Maybe that would change things if like Donald Trump says, hey, yeah, like we are wanting to buying $1 million Bitcoin, and we're going ahead with that. So I don't know. What do you think could drastically move Bitcoin? Is there any news, or is it just like over time?
I think we're going to get to a point in time when people realize there's not the amount of Bitcoin out there that people say there is. And this is going to cause a massive spike. And I forget who posted this, but hopefully they get the credit that's due. But what happens when the Bitcoin Treasury companies are reporting that they collectively own 22 million coins?
As a guest of mine said it a few weeks ago. Oh gosh, I forgot who. But it was not a long time ago. I have to look it up. Maybe I'll put it in the description, because someone of my guests said, what happens when all the Bitcoin Treasury companies combines are like, yeah, we have now 22 million Bitcoin, and the Bitcoin Treasury is like, how the heck is that possible?
Yeah, how long are those shareholders going to remain shareholders? They're going to sell their stock and they're going to go buy Bitcoin. Which is going to add further pressure to what those Bitcoin Treasury companies are reporting. And so, as funny as this is to think of, I just love that as a thought experiment. That will happen in time at some point in time. And yeah, that is absolutely going to happen. And we're going to see who's been swimming naked.
That's why we need self-custody, and you have to have your own key.
Simple.
Really cool. I have one question to ask each and every one of my returning guests. And the question is, what have you learned outside of Bitcoin since your last appearance on the podcast?
Question. I'd say that it's never as good and it's never as bad as you think it is, regardless of what you're thinking about.
This is so true. There is This is so true. Oh gosh. No, there's a lot of things that I'm thinking about now that I'm like, oh shit, yeah, that's very true. Because you sometimes hear like really good news and then you're like, okay, there was this and this small detail to it that makes it not that good. And then you hear really bad news and you're like, oh yeah, like that's not that bad. Like it's bad, but it's not that bad. So that's very, very, very true. Did you get to know about that through personal experience or?
Maybe. I'm still thinking about the first conversation we had where you put me on the spot with that horrible question. Who's going to win the US election and why? I was like, what sort of question is that?
Oh, you got a good one today too.
Yeah, I did. I got a great one.
Oh no, we have as the question was the Endorsement question. I think it was like about Trump. It was crazy.
Yeah, that was. I think it was who's going to win the US election, and I might have commented that I thought it would be very polarizing that Trump would win if he survived long enough, and then he had 2 assassination attempts. So
this was just
quite
crazy.
poignant.
Yeah, you called it. You called it. But we have an end routine, and this is where the first episode this came out. The question came from the previous guest, and today's end routine is as always, where the previous guest asks a question for the next guest without knowing who the next guest actually is, and it's also an interesting question, but not as controversial, I think. What do you believe is true that actually isn't?
That's a very good question. Probably some light humor on this. For a long time, and even if asked, I think the toilet paper should be put over on top so that when you spin it round, it falls to the ground because you want the top pulled out. But I actually think if you've got a dog, you'll understand that you never leave the toilet paper like that. And that was one of the things that I actually had to change my opinion on. Even though logically I still like it over the top because the dog's there and wants to wind the toilet paper off the roll. It actually works much better if you put it under. So when the dog flips the reel, it stays on the reel and it doesn't fall to the ground.
What?
Yeah.
But I mean, maybe I have different things, but like it rolls down either side.
Yeah, so if you put the toilet roll on top and pull it down, if you keep rolling it like that, it'll all spool off. But if you put it under and you spool down like that, it will never unroll. It'll just keep going round and round in circles.
Ah, interesting. Oh gosh. Yeah, I never thought about that.
Yeah, get a dog, you'll figure it out.
We had actually a dog, but I think he wasn't tall enough. Like it was a very small one. I think
clever.
It was more like a rat, but it still was a dog. But yeah, thank you so much, Peter, for being on. Before I let you go, where can people find you and the Bitcoin Advisory?
Really simple. I'm on X at Peter BTC Advisor with an ER. The Bitcoin Advisor, www.thebitcoinadvisor.com with an ER. And if you're looking to any help in self-custodying your Bitcoin, please reach out to us. We'd love to help you. And it's one of my favorite things to do, to watch the excitement of someone taking self-custody of their Bitcoin and knowing that it's safe. So we've got a stack of resources at those at that website. We've got a ChatGPT bot that's free to anyone who's subscribed to OpenAI and ChatGPT. So we make all of those resources available for free because we want, if you're here in Bitcoin, we want you to succeed and do the very best you can to self-custody it. And if you're still stuck after those resources, then please reach out to us. We'd love to help.
Awesome. Great to hear that you use a lot of AI. I mean, I think it's probably the only thing that I'm also super bullish on outside of Bitcoin.
Agreed.
Then thank you so much, Peter, for being on. And also thank you so much for everyone that is watching and listening for joining us today. As always, I'll be back tomorrow with another episode. Bye-bye. this content is for educational and entertainment purposes only and does not constitute financial advice.